You know, what can I tell you, right? All right. Now, you probably have come to the conclusion on your own that we're living in very difficult times. And these are times that are different than any other times that have been known. It's not that we don't, that we didn't have difficulty other times, because we have. But this time we are presently living is one that is unique unto itself. And I believe that recent events have confirmed what I believed. The vast difference between how we govern our nation. I was taught that we're a capitalist society. And I was given some very positive indications of the value of capitalism. And if anybody raised a statement of what it's like to be a communist, we'd resist them. As negative as we looked at communism, we viewed socialism in the same way. And I joined in, not knowing until I began to dissect what it is to be a socialist. And I have to say that I feel not only that I'm a Unitarian Universalist and have been for years and never knew it, but I'm also a socialist for very specific reasons. Now, one reason that calls me to be a socialist would have to be the paradox of our age. Yes, we're living with greater bounty than we could ever have imagined so many years ago when our country was formed. I mean, look at how well we live. We call this country an experiment. Ben Franklin came out of that Constitutional Convention, an elderly man, he was wiping his brow, exhausted. He said, well, it's a republic if you can keep it. Now, how are we living in reality today? As Charles Dickens reminded us in The Tale of Two Cities, are we really living in the best of times and the worst of times? Think about it. We have taller buildings but shorter tempers, wider freeways but narrower viewpoints. We spend more but have less. We buy more but enjoy it less. We have bigger houses and smaller families, more conveniences but less time. We have more degrees but less common sense, more knowledge but less judgment, more experts but more problems, more medicine but less wellness. We spend too recklessly, we laugh too little, we drive too fast, we get too angry too quickly, we stay up too late, we get up too tired, we read too seldom, and we watch TV too much. We meditate too seldom. We multiplied our valuables, but we have reduced our values. We talk too much. We love too seldom, and we lie too often. We've been all the way to the moon and back, but we have trouble crossing the street to meet our new neighbor. We've conquered outer space, but not inner space. We've done bigger things, but not better things. We cleaned up the air, but polluted the soul. We split the atom, but not our prejudice. We write more, but we learn less. We plan more, but we accomplish less. We learn to rush, but not to wait. We have higher incomes, but lower morals. More food, but less appeasement. More acquaintances, but fewer friends. More effort, but less success. We build more computers to hold more information, to produce more copies than ever. But we have less communication. We become long on quantity and short on quality. These are the times of fast foods, slow digestion, tall men with short characters, steep profits and shallow relationships. These are the times of world peace but domestic warfare and mass shootings. More leisure and less fun. More kinds of food but less nutrition. These are the days of two incomes but more divorce. Of fancier houses but broken homes underwater. These are the days of quick expense trips, disposable diapers, throwaway morality, one-night stands, and pills that do practically everything from cheer us to quiet us to kill us. Yes, the paradox of our age is that we live in a time where there's so much in the showroom and very little in the stockroom. That's it. Oh, there's a time that faith used to be tough. Now we're Now we're returning to the old frightening practices of banning books and taking away rights that people fought for their lives to get. It disturbs me greatly. The several books that I hold dear, that I actually taught in classrooms, were removed because someone felt it was destructive to the pedagogical development of young people. Oh, it's bad. And even my favorite, The Wizard of Oz, could not escape being banned. The American film classic, which I watch every year, apparently, to some, it subverts the notion of God. And God alone rescues us from sin and destruction. To the contrary, The Wizard of Oz teaches self-reliance and a recognition that you already have what you need to make it, if only you'll act upon your inherited virtues. Sounds very Unitarian Universalist to me. But then I might be biased in my assessment. The cowardly lion was brave by virtue of his courage, and all he needed was a medal to prove his courage. The scarecrow was intelligent, and all he needed was the self-confidence of credentials, which is his diploma. Remember that scene? You do, I know you do. Back where I come from, there are men of great learning who have no greater brains than you have. But there's one thing they have that you don't have, a diploma. Therefore, by virtue of academia in the e pluribus unum of ipso facto Department of Higher Learning, I award to you the honorary doctorate of thinkology. To which the scarecrow, overwhelmed, starts to recite Einstein's theory of relativity. E equals m² squared, or whatever. And then there was the Tin Man, who had a heart by virtue of his tenderness, and all he needed was a ticker to fill his empty chest and his broken emotions. Of course, when he received his testimonial, he began to cry, which is the worst thing for a tin man to do, since he also is vulnerable to rusting. Well, there you have it, subversion in the worst kind. Somebody declared that this was the Antichrist masquerading as a children's movie. And in the paranoid world of fundamentalists, truth finally slays beauty. If it doesn't come dressed up as a stormtrooper, stamped and approved in the suffocating halls of right and wrong, then it's evil. And one of the most tragic twists of organized religion, the Nazarene, a genuine and authentic nonviolent liberator, becomes a mean-spirited judge. Instead of a tough, streetwise man of faith, mixing it up with prostitutes and tax collectors, he becomes a fear peddler, gathering his faithful together in a corner to lash out at all that threatens the purity of self-righteousness. Could this be where the seeds of manifest destiny were planted? When did the holy book that so many people adore change from leaven in the loaf to pickets in front of 7-Eleven? How did the man who sought to save us from legalism and the spiritual death of nitpicking piety all of a sudden become the leader of folks who swipe at everything that goes bump in the secular night? So you want to know why I'm a socialist, do you? Well, it might be a good time to ask, in the scheme of things here, where do Unitarian Universalists come down? It's not that Unitarian Universalists are naive about evil. It's just that we have this ancient and irresistible confidence in the teachings of how good triumph over evil, and rather than conduct exorcisms or other kinds of religious purifications. The good book is fundamentally anti-fear, and whatever or whomever uses fear to force the world's hand is something far unrelated to anything religious. Fear-mongering falls into the category of deceit and manipulation. So you want to know why I'm a socialist. Probably I'm a socialist because of the paradox of our age, which is filled with irony. The irony of attacking the Wizard of Oz, in the end, is the ancient Judeo-Christian doctrine is beautifully portrayed. That's what the real tragedy is. The need to recognize inherent virtue and act upon it underscores the whole concept of Imago Dei, made in the image of God. To conquer fear and insecurity, the root of all evil, is to discover a reckless confidence, which the Quakers call a divine spark. So you'll have to bear with me. For the Supreme Court of the United States to decide to end affirmative action and equal opportunity, which hurts people who are marginalized and people of color, is a betrayal of that same mean-spiritedness that the gospel loathes, their gospel. The paradox of their decisions contradict their impartiality, and it convicts them for being partisan. Saying no to helping our poor kids strangled by student loans, but who still believe in this country, is a moral disgrace. It's a moral disgrace. Maybe it would have been okay, one can only suppose, if the wizard had said, "Profess the Lord Jesus Christ as your personal Savior." But Jesus himself knew that incantation was no guarantee of religiosity. Not everyone, he said, says to me, "Lord, Lord," shall enter the kingdom of heaven. Compare all of that to Unitarian Universalism, and what you come up with is a denomination that centers on spiritual humanity, and where followers are encouraged to embrace truth in a multiplicity of form, not to be suspicious of any new truths that might diminish the truths we already advocate. John said to him, "Teacher, we saw a man casting out demons in your name, and we forbade him because he wasn't following us." But Jesus said, "Don't forbid him, for he that is not against us is for us." Yet everywhere you look these days, fundamentalism, which insists on its way or no other way, is on the rise. We are really witnessing the return of the 1920s, 100 years ago, and the reemergence of old idols. The so-called battle for the Bible is nothing more than the rejection of centuries of scholarship and its invaluable findings. See, the Bible is in the way. It's not a book, but an anthology of 66 books, produced over thousands of years in ancient tongues, in oral tradition, produced, steeped in pre-scientific cosmology, and riddled with contradictions. It's a collection of literature made sacred somehow by its use in communities of faith, not by its divine authorship, because it was a book written by men or women about God. Inspired, yes. Invaluable, yes. Instructive, yes. Inerrant, no. Infallible, no. For to say so creates another idol. And it crucifies reason, which is also what Unitarian Universalists hold to be self-evident as one of the many gifts that we possess from birth. The paradoxical tragedy of all this, the 800-pound gorilla in the room that nobody's talking about, is that faith is being killed by so-called lovers of it. For long after one has ceased wondering, did Jonah really survive 3 days suffocating in the darkness and deadly stomach acids of a great whale? There's a Jewish parable to discover, a rich and unforgettable lesson about the radical love and patience of God. To stop at literalism is to miss the point. To reject symbolism and metaphor and myth as untruth is to pull the teeth of the storyteller. And so it goes these days. There is once again a siege mentality among people who call themselves faithful, declare all deviations to be evil, pronounce all wisdom out of uniform a whore, put the lamp back under the bushel, so that that inclusive ministry called the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tampa won't blow it out. Well, with bumper sticker simplicity, you've seen it. I can't believe it, but it's still there. Honk if you love Jesus. Throw in a toxic arrogance of superiority and show the world how faith closes you down instead of opens you up. Use transgender people as your scapegoat and crush everything about them until your son's prom dress comes back from the dry cleaners. Or so. Let me confess, I joined this church with one missional priority in mind, to reverse that trend and to welcome everyone, no matter who they are, no matter what they believe or even do not believe. We can simply care about them as much as we care about ourselves, and I would even say more than ourselves. That's why I'm a socialist. I'm not going to lie. I'm pleased when some people succeed in America. I am. But I got to tell you, I'm thrilled over the moon when all people succeed in America. And as a hopeless romantic, I love the ending of The Wizard of Oz. It's great. I used to teach this thing, the gospel according to the Wizard of Oz. Dorothy finally declares her understanding of everything that she experienced. I mean, weren't you kind of amazed that this good witch of the North seemed to be herself a little bit inebriated with some either alcohol or drugs? And tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Right? I mean, wrong? Right? And she would just like stand there. I mean, I thought it was amazing. Right? And then, she would just, with the baton and everything would be right again. Man, I would love to meet somebody like that, wouldn't you? The wizard showed his humanity. She hits him. Dorothy went, remember Toto? Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. I am the great and powerful Oz. Remember? And then she says, you're a bad man. Oh, no, my dear. I'm a very good man. I'm just a bad wizard. He says that. And then she says, wait, come back. And he's leaving in the hot air balloon. Wait. She went to get Toto. No, I don't know how. He didn't know how to turn it around. So he left and he said goodbye to everybody. And, she learns the lessons. I don't know why the good witch of the North seemed to put her through all that. But she did. And maybe it's a lesson to learn. She learned the lesson of everything she experienced. She looks into the camera, and with new confidence, she says, but now we're home, Toto. That's all that matters. There's no place like home. Wow. I wish everyone felt the way I feel about this church. It took me a long time, but I'm home. It used to be that faith was tough. Now it's running scared. Thank you.